Hey everyone, Mike here, and today we're going to talk about the Asus Transformer Book TX300. On a first look, you might think this is one of those sleek ultrabooks we've been seeing around lately, but it's actually something else. An Intel Core Power tablet running Windows 8 bundled with a multifunctional docking station. So in other words, it's a hybrid that you can use both as a tablet and as a laptop. But is it any good? Well, that you'll find out by the end of this video. We'll start off with the design. The Transformer Book borrows much of its aesthetics from the Asus Zenbook line. The tablet itself is a slab of glass and metal with aluminum covering its rear. However, this isn't the slate you've been used to lately. First of all, it's massive, as it offers a 13.3-inch screen and a thick bezel, so it's nowhere as portable or as easy to use as the iPad or some of the other Windows or Android tablets out there. And then it's also rather thick and heavy, weighing just over 2 pounds. But as you might have guessed by the massive cooling grill on the rear of this device, this tablet is not made for couch use. It's a completely different beast, as you'll find out a little bit later. For now, let's get back to the slate. Having a quick look around the sides, you'll notice a power button and what looks like a pair of microphones on the top edge of the Transformer Book, a volume rocker, a state LED, a micro HDMI port and a 3.5mm jack on the left edge, and a very thin cut on the right edge, which to be frank, I'm not entirely sure what it's supposed to do. And there are some things on the bottom as well, a micro SD card reader, the charging port, two latches used to connect the tablet to a docking station, and the proprietary port used for that. Now onto the docking station. To start with, it's incredibly solid and the aluminum cast feels both premium but also reliable. The docking unit integrates a keyboard, a trackpad, a bunch of ports on the sides and some extra goodies inside. About that port, on the left edge there's the charging port identical to the one used on the tablet. Asus went for this magnetic connector instead of the classic pin, and I can't say it's a better or worse approach. It just works. Next to it there's an SD card reader and some discrete status LEDs hiding behind punctured aluminum grills. On the other side you'll find a full-size Ethernet plug, two USB 3.0 ports and a mini DisplayPort connector. So basically you've got all the things you're going to need here. Inside the docking there's a hard drive and an extra battery that recharges the one inside the tablet and keeps the Transformer Book running longer when the slate and the dock are attached. Speaking of that, latching the two together is extremely simple and the hinge feels sturdy. The connection between them is not as snug as I would expect though, at least on my unit, so the slate tends to wobble a bit in place. And that's going to be annoying when reaching for the screen, as the connection is not firm enough so the tablet won't move at all when touched. Anyway, let's move along and talk about the screen. There's a bright and vivid 13.3-inch IPS panel with 1920 by 1080 pixel resolution on the Transformer Book, so everything is just right here. The texts are sharp, the colors vibrant, and you'll have no problem whatsoever with the viewing angles either. Light bleeding around the edges of the panel might be disturbing, or at least it was on my test unit, but I can't say that's really a deal breaker for me since the light spots are only visible on dark static scenes. But there's more about this display. As you might have got by now, this is a touchscreen and supports up to 10 touch points. It works as it should, and I had no problem performing gestures, taps and all sorts of commands on its frame, including those Windows 8 gestures. However, the screen does not include an active digitizer, and as a result it will not work with a precision pen, only with capacitive styluses. Or in other words, it's not good for inking, sketching, drawing, note-taking and so on. And then there's that wobbling connection between the screen and the dock I was talking about earlier. On my test unit it was just a nuisance, nothing more. But in time it might have unwanted effects on that fragile port that keeps data flowing between the slate and the dock. Thus, since the actual tablet is heavier than a regular laptop screen, Asus should have definitely developed a stronger hinge here, able to keep in place the extra bulk. And then there's the keyboard on this Transformer Book, which is actually one of the best I've seen on an Asus device lately. It's backlit and the keys offer good travel and feedback, so I can say that this keyboard is superior to the one on the Zenbooks. There's no layout issue either, except for the small arrow keys. And as an extra note, you'll notice a special blue key on the upper right side of the keyboard meant to open a management interface designed for the Asus Transformer Book. But before we talk about that, let's focus a bit on the trackpad. This one is spacious and works with all the Windows 8 side gestures. The click buttons are integrated within the tactile area, and in fact the entire surface is clickable. Now, I'm not a big fan of this approach, but it will do. In fact, that's how I can summarize the trackpad on this machine. It will do, as it works fine most of the time, although the cursor can get unresponsive or jumpy from time to time. Okay, so all this aside, let's see what you can actually do with this machine. Like I said in the beginning, the Transformer Book is a Windows 8 powered tablet. This means that you're getting the Metro touch-friendly interface with its apps, but also the classic desktop and the ability to run all the software you're already familiar with from your other PCs. We're talking about serious multitasking, Office, Photoshop, Windows Media Center, and so on. Programming or video editing software can be cranked too, as long as you're working on smaller projects and even games. I've tried Civ 5 and StarCraft 2 on it, and they all ran fine with 13:6 resolution and medium details, but remember that this is not primarily a gaming computer, as there's only that much you can ask from the integrated Intel HD 4000 chip inside it. Bottom point, most of the programs nowadays are going to fly on this machine given its specs. An Intel Core i7 processor lies inside this unit with 4GB of memory, a 128GB SSD inside the tablet, and an extra 500GB hard drive inside the docking station. But you can find more about the specs and some benchmark results I've got for the Transformer book in the written review at ultrabookreview.com. There's a link towards it in the description under this video. Anyway, the processor, the memory, and the SSD are all inside the tablet. Thus, the Slate is a standalone computer of its own that can handle pretty much all the things a regular laptop can. When having it attached to the docking station, you get the extra ports and you can access the regular hard drive where you can store most of your content. One more thing I should mention, since this is a core-powered device, it has fans inside. As a result, you'll hear them spinning. They are never too noisy, but you'll hear them nonetheless when working in a quiet room, especially when you'll push the system a bit harder. The back of the device is going to get warm too, but luckily it never gets uncomfortably hot, not even when running Full HD movies or games on this for several hours. So all in all, with the Transformer book you get a very fast hybrid that you can use when needed as a tablet or as a laptop. With Windows 8 you get the legacy software and the true multitasking you don't find on most other tablet operating systems these days. And on top of that, the device is fast. Boosts from cold in just around 10 seconds and resumes from sleep instantaneously. What's even cooler, it can last in standby for weeks, so there's little point in actually turning it off. Ever. Speaking about the battery life, the tablet itself houses a 38 Wh battery, and under the keyboard there's a 23 Wh one as well. Those being said, you can use the tablet as a standalone device and you'll get between 2.5 and 4.5 hours of daily use on a charge based on what you're doing on it. The exact numbers I got with various usage scenarios can be found in the written review, so you might want to check it out. And then you can connect the tablet to the dock. In this case, there are two different ways you can use the combo. In the first scenario, you get to access everything there is available to the docking unit, the keyboard, the trackpad, ports and the external hard drive. In this case, you get an average of 4 hours of life out of this computer. In the second scenario, you can only use the keyboard and the trackpad on the dock, while all the other features are turned off, and in this case the average battery life will jump to 5+ hours. But once again, the exact numbers are in the written review and you'll find a link towards it in the description below. You can change between the two modes from the Asus Transformer Book Management Console, accessible by pressing the blue button on the keyboard. It's the battery up feature in the light lower corner. Besides that, the interface also offers extra info about the laptop and access to a couple of other Asus tweaks, like the Asus Splendid software that changes the color settings of your screen or the audio wizard. Speaking of audio, you get 2 speakers on the back of the tablet and another 2 on the sides of the docking unit. The sound quality is quite good, as you can hear from the next part of this video. There's also no distortion, but on the other hand, the sound system is not very loud. And there are some extra details I should mention about this laptop, like the decent camera, the reliable connectivity options and others, but more about those in that written review. Anyway, as we draw closer to the end of our review, I believe some of you might find the Transformer book as the next step for laptops. You get all the power and the features of a laptop, but you also get to detach the, let's call it, screen and end up with a tablet you can carry around for your presentations or even for everyday content consumption. Although, since this is a large and heavy slate, it's not really the ideal couch body, but it works nonetheless. On the other hand, the Transformer book is one of the several hybrid designs out there right now. The Asus Taichi, the Lenovo IdeaPad Yoga and Helix, the Sony Vaio Duo 11 are a bunch of other interesting ones you should check out. And while there are plenty of things to like about this Transformer book, there are still a couple that you might not. For some of you, the lack of a digitizer might be a deal breaker, the lack of Wi-Fi, or the light bleeding on the screen. For me, it's the wobbly connection between the tablet and the dock that kind of spells trouble down the line, although this might well be an issue with my sample and not a general problem. And then there's of course the OS and all the annoying incompatibilities between the Metro and the desktop Windows interfaces that will for sure annoy those coming from Windows 7, but that's a different story. In the end, it's up to you to take all the things in this video and the extras in the written review and decide if the Asus Transformer Book TX300 is the right choice for you. Since it costs 1300 euros and up, you should really give it a proper thinking before buying it. But on the other hand, it is in short supplies all around the world, so there's probably no haste anyway. With that in mind, it's time to draw this review to a halt. If you have any questions about the Transformer book, just leave them below and I'll be there to reply. If you don't, thank you for watching this clip and make sure to leave a thumbs up if you liked it and subscribe to the channel for future updates. I'll see you in the next one.